Good evening and welcome to Undaunted, bringing into the news untold stories. I am Star Smart. Let's begin.
Stand with Ambazonia. Empower ABC Amba TV. We are calling on Ambazonians around the world to unite and uplift ABC Amba TV, Ambazonian Broadcasting Corporation. In this critical time of war, ensuring the station's survival is more important than ever. But what does ABC Amba TV truly represent for Ambazonia?
At the heart of Ambazonia's war of independence, ABC Amba TV stands as a beacon. Years of recolonization, annexation, and French Cameroon's oppressive occupation of the southern Cameroon's Ambazonia have led to our exclusion. Our identity was hidden, our history distorted, our sovereignty denied.
Queen of England is aware that the British Southern Cameroons were never a colony under France.
Since its inception in 2018, ABC Amba TV has been our lifeline.
Months of diplomacy have failed to resolve the crisis as fear grows over an imminent Russian invasion of Ukraine.
Our work in the dark is our chance to tell our stories to the world, to give voice to the voiceless and broadcast the truth of our struggle.
We are serious about executing this revolution.
It has become a vital arm of our government in wartime, making diplomacy achievable and showcasing our untold stories.
ABC Amba, you guys know how important ABC is for this, our quest for international recognition.
Your donations can make a world of difference. Every bit of support helps keep our stories alive, our presence known, and our fight in the global conversation.
The moment they notice that we are no longer on air, they think that, oh, maybe La Republic has succeeded. This is about Ambazonia. One thing we must always remember.
Where would we be without ABC Amba TV? Let's ensure we never have to find out.
A revolution is a temporary state of insanity to bring about sanity.
Mobilize, donate, stand with Ambazonia, donate to ABC Amba TV.
Together, let's write the next chapter of our history.
It is better to light the candle than to curse the dark.
Support ABC Amba TV campaign. Ambazonia Independence, voice for the voiceless. Mobilize for change.
Well, the ongoing Ambazonian struggle for liberation from La Republic to Cameroon has reached a phase that is very defining, marked by the resilience of Ambazonian people and the determined defense of their homeland by the Ambazonian State Army. Despite over 6 decades of political marginalization, economic exploitation, and cultural suppression under a colonial regime, the Amazonian spirit has refused to be extinguished. The so-called union between Southern Cameroon and La République du Cameroon, originally envisioned as a partnership, has turned into a campaign of forced assimilation and systematic erasure of Ambazonia's identity. Since the flawed 1961 plebiscite and the subsequent annexation policies, the people of Ambazonia have been locked in a battle to reclaim their sovereignty, heritage, and dignity. The struggle of Ambazonia is intensified by the hypocrisy of the colonial regime and its surrogates, many of whom are of Ambazonian descent. While they praise President Paul Biya's prolonged rule, touting his achievements through propaganda documentaries and public displays, the same officials condemn the dire conditions that his administration has created. Their voices echo with contradictions. They glorify Pobia's governance on one hand, while lamenting the neglected roads, collapsed infrastructure, and lack of basic services affecting Ambazonians on the other hand. But these colonial surrogates sworn to serve communities instead dance to the tune of La Republic assimilation agenda, betraying the very people they claim to represent. Yet despite this betrayal and the ongoing challenges, Ambazonia's determination only grows even stronger. The Ambazonian State Army, tasked with protecting the sovereignty of their territory, continues to mount a defense against incursions by La République du Cameroon's forces in the face of arbitrary arrests, extrajudicial killings, and the framing of civilians as amber fighters to justify the state of violence. The State Army has stood their commitments to securing Ambazonia from colonial occupation has fueled a renewed sense of hope and strength amongst Ambazonians, signaling that their liberation struggle is not only alive, but gaining momentum. This resilience is in the face of adversity only showcases an unyielding commitment to freedom, sovereignty, and the preservation of Ambazonia's identity, a testament to the triumph of persistence over colonial subjugation. With that, we'll get the prime headlines.
Ninth. Colonial regime in Buea releases 39 detainees after women demanded for justice. Colonial officials ban masquerades in Buea County, raising Ambazonia's cultural heritage. Tonight on Undaunted, we'll take a look at the Ambazonian State Army reinforcing commitment to defend territory, and also tonight for that, following lockdown amid documentary screening. Official Colonial praises Buea rule while confessing Ambazonia's neglect. All the African scene, beauty queen stripped of South African citizenships amid xenophobic controversy, which has sparked political tensions. On the foreign scene, the 2024 U.S. presidential election is just around the corner, and polls are indicating a nail-beaten finish. Now let's get the full briefings. The struggle for liberation in Ambazonia has been marked by relentless resistance from its people and a harsh response from the colonial regime of La République du Cameroon. Despite international calls for accountability, The regime has continued its campaign of impunity with arbitrary arrests, forced detentions, and even extrajudicial killings of innocent civilians, often labeling them as amber fighters. The colonial agenda is often aided by local surrogates, individuals of Ambazonia origin who collaborate with the regime to further the assimilation and repression of their own communities. This repression, under the guise of security, has become a daily reality for many as families live with the constant threat of abduction and violence.
Well, in a rare concession, colonial forces in Buea have released 93 individuals abducted from Malmu after women dressed in black staged a powerful protest demanding the release of their detained husbands and sons. His Royal Majesty Chief Embola Charles of Malmu confirmed that 93 individuals, including youths and minors, had been detained since October 20th but were freed by the Colonial Military Tribunal on October 29th. This incident underscores the brutal tactics used by the colonial regime to suppress dissent from Ambazonia, as arbitrary arrests, forced detentions, and killings continue to be inflicted on civilians, often with impunity. Families are frequently required to pay hefty ransoms for their relatives to be released, further illustrating the extortion, not just repression, faced by Ambazonians.
Well, even as women bravely demanded justice, local journalists faced harassment for documenting the protest. During the protest on the 24th of October, one reporter, Guy Bruno Maimo, who we told you was a third-year student of journalism and mass communication, was detained by colonial forces for attempting to document the event, highlighting the risks for journalists and the Cameroons.
Well, this suppression of free press underscores the regime's effort to keep these human rights violations hidden. The release of the Malmo detainees, however, signifies the potential for community resistance to hold colonial authorities accountable, showcasing Ambazonia's enduring struggle for justice and liberation amidst oppressive tactics.
Well, the release of the Mamu detainees demonstrates that community resilience and collective action can still make an impact. The courageous stance of the Mamu women is a testament to the yielding spirit of Ambazonians who, despite the ongoing repression, continues to fight for justice, accountability, and freedom. All right, yesterday we talked about all of these, and Barrister Mbeseha did tell us his thoughts. Well, Barrister Mbeseha, moving forward, the reporter hasn't been released by any latest information, but we can see that a few of the protesters have been released. What would you say about this?
Well, I don't know how to classify it, but let us assume that they have been released. Just believe that they have been released from 20th of October to 30th of October. That's about 10 days. And so they are members of a community of people. You say 90 something of them. So what was their crime? You rightly put it, they were abducted from their village in the name of Kale Kale. They have sat here many times to say it's illegal in the first place. So what crime did they commit? Because they arrested the whole village. If the whole village, a community commits a crime, that is a difficult thing for you to define. Because we don't know their crime. But if they are alleged to be Amber supporters, as they call them, if a whole community supports Amber, which is an ideology, which is a civil right, have they committed any crime to be arrested? If you must arrest them, as you have done, you think going to the community for believing in something is how you solve the problem. Certainly not. Now we'll come to the release. How were they released? We don't have all the facts, but the story is that they paid money. Each of them paid at least 50,000 francs to get a release. Just multiply 50,000 by 97, or just by 100. That is not less than 5 million. 5 million is a lot of money in Cameroon. They paid all this money. I'm not sure that they were giving any receipts. So it was a ploy to extort money from the people, to extort money from the vulnerable. Because they see these people, villagers, as vulnerable people who have no way to resist them. They come and capture them, extort money from them, release them at will. Yes, some women might have gone there wearing black and white, but I'm not sure that's where they release them. If they release them after getting what they wanted to get. They wanted money from these people. And they got the money, and they say, okay, go back home. Nobody has been charged to any court for any crime. And so, coming to the village, for whatever thing they think the people did, because you suspected that, let me assume that there was a suspect, call it the Amber, which according to them is a crime. If there's one Amber there that you think is a crime, a criminal, because he supports Amber or he fights for Amber, that is not a reason, that's not a legal reason to arrest the whole village. The person who reports to you that A or B is an Amber, who is a criminal according to your own records, is living in house A, house B, house C. You go to that particular spot. First of all, you obtain an arrest warrant, a search warrant, go to that particular spot, pick the person that was the suspect, bring him or her for questioning, at the end of which you send him to court if there's any reasonable belief, or you let the person go. This is not what happened. And so going to the village in the name of fighting Amber, whatever name you give that village, call it Buea, call it Burakanda, call it Mamu, or any other village in the world, and doing that is manifestly illegal. It is extortion. It is part of a ruthless government. And so, again, if the woman caused the release because the war black person went there, you go to vindicate what I said 2 days ago. There's power in the group. If they had arrested only one child or two, and the two parents when they wanted, they were not a real child. But in fact, that 50 women, 10 women in black were there, and people trying to take pictures of what they were doing. He knew that that was going to portray them around the world because the pictures will go viral. We're in the age of social media. And so they will make them unpopular. Just like the arrest of Longe, I know a person. And so it goes back to what I said. The young man who was arrested 23 years old, 22 years old, he's a helpless young man as an individual. But as a member of a community of people, he's a powerful member of the community. If his students, colleagues, his faculty had written just a letter, that is our student, that will have a meaning. If they did not release him, and only his classmates in his own class, who are more than 100, moved out there, they will set him free. Don't misunderstand me. You're not going to move out there freely. By the time you get there to demonstrate, they will brutalize you. They will beat you up. They will arrest some of you. But that's the price to pay for freedom, because the only challenge a dictator with the same means that he has. Because those who are in Buea University, for example, maybe they don't know, in the 1990s, they created that university out of pressure. People demonstrated in Yaoundé. People lost their eyes.
From what you've said, you're saying these colonial forces of occupation have actually done business and made money from these people, because you can imagine that money is a lot. It's actually painful, but to think about it, that most of them, they're just there to exploit the people. It's quite alarming. 50,000 per person. And these are people who probably can't even make ends meet, are struggling due to the impact of this war. And still they exploit and extort from them. Imagine 93 persons who have been released. Imagine those are the ones who were able. They arrested over 100 persons. Those were the ones who probably were able to pay this sum. And we don't know. It's possible that it might even be more than this guess of 50,000 naira. We could never tell. But we want to move away from this report because you've actually dealt with it in its the core of it, and it's quite understandable. It's at the same time sad for Ambazonians. It's understandable what they had to go through for these 10 days and how they were released, because we've seen this time and time again. You are not let go until you pay these ransoms. It's quite telling. But we're moving away from this arbitrary arrest. On one side, it's a bright note that at least 93% have been released. We're hoping that in the future, the rest of them, in the coming days, the rest of them would be released. But going to Ambazonia's heritage, so to put, Ambazonia's identity, we're seeing a certain incursion and a certain type of erasure of Ambazonia's culture and other identity. And you want to tell us about it?
Well, since the flawed 1961 plebiscite, La Republic du Cameroon has pursued an agenda of annexation and forced assimilation, seeking to erase their distinct identity and heritage of Southern Cameroons. This campaign has only intensified with the complicity of local officials of Southern Cameroon's origin who, serving the colonial regime, aid the agenda that aims to dismantle the cultural foundations of their own people. These colonial surrogates have played a troubling role in supporting La Republic du Cameroon's control over Ambazonia, suppressing Southern Cameroon's right to self-expression, tradition, and self-governance.
Oh, well, in yet another assault on the identity and traditions of Ambazonia, the Colonial Senior Divisional Officer for Buea County, Mayor Gilbert Sunday, banned the display of traditional masquerades, a move that, of course, Ambazonians view as a targeted attack on their cultural heritage. The order, which appeared in an official communique dated October 30th, prohibits the public gathering where these masquerades customarily appear, depriving the people of Buea of an essential expression of their cultural identity. Masquerades hold a profound place in Ambazonian culture, symbolizing ancestral connection, community unity, and the rich traditions passed down through generations. The SDO, the Colonial SDO's order, issued without any public mandate, strikes at the heart of Ambazonian culture, suppressing a long-standing tradition that brings people together and foster a collective sense of belonging.
Well, this ban reflects a larger pattern of oppression and cultural suppression. The colonial government of President Paul Biya has consistently targeted Ambazonian custom and institution in an attempt to dilute the identity of the people. Beyond these latest prohibition on masquerades, Biya's regime has attempted to manipulate traditional succession, interfering in the selection of local leaders to weaken Ambazonian custom. In one stance, the colonial SDO for Menchum attempted to assert control over the selection of the next traditional ruler in Esu, a move that was abandoned only after fierce resistance from Ambazonian traditional leaders and community development groups.
Well, the complicity of colonial surrogates of Southern Cameroon descent in high colonial positions amplifies these oppressive policies as they carry out orders aimed at dissolving their people's heritage and aligning the homeland's tradition with the demands of colonial La République. By advancing La République's assimilationist agenda, these officials become instruments of cultural erasure, abandoning the very customs that they were born into for the sake of serving a colonial government. Their actions really betrays the value of Ambazonia, exacerbating the assault on Ambazonia's traditions and stripping the people of their rights to self-expression.
Well, as Ambazonians face growing suppression of their identity, Ambazonians are reminded of the need for unity and resistance against these oppressive measures. The people of Ambazonia continue to rally in defense of their culture, hoping to preserve their custom, language, and heritage for future. Not just for the present, but for future generations, despite the forces of assimilation imposed by La Republic du Cameroon. The ban on masquerade is a stark reminder of the continued struggle against the colonial regime attempt to erase Ambazonia's unique identity, underscoring the urgent need for solidarity among Ambazonians in safeguarding their culture and spiritual legacies. Well, this is particularly a sad one. How do you erase such? All right, Barrister Mbeseha. Masquerades and the rest trying to get banned, and we know how that can stand for the culture and how that can identify a particular people. What do you think about these developments?
I think that every community in Cameroon, call it Cameroon or in Africa, they have their cultural identity, which is symbolized by those masquerades. And so it is not only in Ambazonia, but what they are trying to do, what that guy is trying to do, he's trying to culturally assimilate these people. Assimilation is a crime. Paul Buea himself accepted that over the years they tried to assimilate Anglophones and they did not succeed. Assimilation of Anglophones in the language of Paul Buea is not just assimilating the English alone. They assimilate their culture by abolishing it. They don't want the culture to exist. So an attempt to abolish a people's culture is a crime punishable under international law. That's what they call cultural genocide. You don't kill your culture because you're trying to transform a people to what they are not. So the preservation of the culture is part of humanity. And even in Cameroon, under their own constitution, those things have to be preserved. In their preamble, they stated there that people were identified as cultural. That's why they talk in their preamble that they were ethnic representation. In the assembly, they look at that. They are supposed to look at that. And so, but what this guy is doing is something very, very big. Because who is an administrator there? That guy standing there is a duo. It's not just a duo. He's the personal representative of the head of state. So he claims his powers are coming from the highest level. The president sees him and talks to him every day and night. So it is him. But the question we have to ask is, why this one in Banso? We have witnessed it every day, almost every week. In a Bolova, in San Milima, we see the people of the Bulu and the Betis initiating Paul Buea into their cultural rites, killing goats and dancing around him, playing drums and burning firewood and all those things. Why are those ones not banned? What is the difference between what these people do, initiating Paul Buea into their cultural nonsense, and what the Banso people are just dancing their masquerade? That's just a dance. But this is not the first time. You remember when this war started a few years back, Atanganji, who is supposed to be one of us, he is supposed to understand at least the Bamenda culture, you know, the African culture. He banned the use of cutlasses. He knows that every woman, everybody goes to the farm with a cutlass. The cutlass is one of the tools that you survive on because you have to cut down the firewood. You have to cut down the trees to make the farm. Atanganji purported to ban it. Where has that ban gone to? Have the people in Bamenda or anywhere else surrendered all their spears because of Atanganji's ban? Have they surrendered their cutlasses? They have not. And so they no longer talk about it. It's a failure. It's an attempt at an impossibility. Again, it's a crime. An attempt to assimilate the people, which is not going to work. That assimilation, they've tried everything that they could. It has not worked. As I've always given the expression, it's like a porcupine, if you know the porcupine. Porcupine has, they call it in the country talk, choco beef. The python is one of the most feared reptiles in the world. And in Africa, it swallows goats, it swallows cows. But it cannot swallow a python. It cannot swallow choco beef. Because that choco will choke that into death. So these people are on a free lance. They are fighting a war that they cannot win. Banning masquerades in Banso, in Bamenda, in Buea, or anywhere else in Ambazonia is a waste of time. You're wasting your time. That is not going to bring you peace. The only thing that you do is to go to the table, talk peace with the people who matter, who know how to use their masquerades. I can dare that prefer. Let him go and arrest one of those masquerades and see if he will survive the next 24 hours. Let him go and arrest one. He will die. Most of us, if not most, many of us, you still remember the story of Frondi and his Takumbeng women. This woman who could strip themselves naked there and say, "There, come and touch him and we'll see how you go." They failed. Nobody arrested me from it. So you cannot ban a masquerade because you don't even know where it comes from. And again, I dare urge that guy, let him dare go and arrest the masquerade because they're not going to stop it anyway. They are not going to stop their masquerades. And I'll encourage them to do it. Even if it means coming to catch you and send to jail, go do it and risk the jail. And we'll see if that administrator will survive in that place for 72 hours. Over to you.
All right, thank you, Barrister Mbeseha. Now we'll head on to what's been happening on Ambazonia's territory. This time we see the ASA, the Ambazonian State Army, in action. Reports coming into Undaunted reveals that on October 29th, 2024, the Ambazonian State Army carried out a decisive ambush in Tatum, Buea County, underscoring their dedication to defending Ambazonian territory against La République du Cameroon's occupying forces of occupation. The operation was conducted by a joint task force within the Buea County, the ASA, under the command of Major General Viper of the Air Force, General Newsman of the Town Boys, and Commanders Ayaka and Bamenda. This coordinated offensive targeted a La République convoy en route to a guards change at an unauthorized checkpoint in Tatum. Two armored vehicles transporting La République troops were hit by intense gunfire at close range, strategically aimed at the exposed back section of the vehicles. The ambush led to significant casualties, with at least 5 confirmed fatalities, including a La République lieutenant. Well, the deceased have since been airlifted to Sangmalima, and additionally, La République forces have sustained life-threatening injuries, leaving them in critical conditions.
Well, the ASA has reaffirmed these stance by calling on La République du Cameroon troop stations in Buea County, now termed the land of no return, to surrender their arms and seek safe passage out of Ambazonia. Well, according to the ASA leadership, those who voluntarily disarm and withdraw from the contested region will be safely escorted to a neighboring country, marking an opportunity for them to escape further confrontation. Buea warriors and the ASA leadership have extended a plea to the people of Ambazonia, supporters and allies who value justice, peace, and independence, urging them to continue providing the resources and backing necessary to sustain the ASA's efforts. This latest operation, marked by tactical precision and unity amongst ASA units, reinforces the ASA's enduring commitment to securing Ambazonians' freedom from occupation. Well, as La République du Cameroon troops face escalating resistance, their ASA has made it clear that the resilience of Ambazonian fighters will persist until full territorial sovereignty is achieved. Now, there are rising tensions in Mbeseha. This week, Bamenda in Mbeseha County has witnessed a serious strength of violent incidents following the lockdown called by their Ambazonian National Self-Defense Council. The lockdown aimed to halt the screening of a documentary on President Paul Biya of La République du Cameroon, which Ambazonian leaders have condemned as colonial propaganda. Well, at least 4 individuals have lost their lives in recent days, with their bodies discovered in public areas of Bamenda. The first victim was reportedly the second deputy mayor of Bamenda 2 Council, whose body was found in the street, followed by the third deputy mayor of the same council. In each case, the victims were targeted between the early morning hours of 3 a.m. and 5 a.m., with the latest body discovered at the Naka Junction.
Well, reports indicate that those killed had attended the documentary screening, a gathering unauthorized by the Ambazonian National Security Council, the ANSC. Local residents report that individuals who attended the screening have since sought refuge, fearing for their safety as uncertainty and tension grip the community. The Ambazonian National Self-Defense chairman had addressed the situation, stating that investigations into the recent killings are ongoing. Of course, he did not rule out the possibility of external manipulation by La République forces, citing pattern observed in other parts of Ambazonia where targeted violence was allegedly used to undermine local support for the Ambazonian independence movement. Well, the escalating tension in Bamenda reflects broader complexities as the people of Ambazonia continue to resist colonial influence. The recent incident underscores the deep-seated division and the atmosphere of fear and suspicion that have taken hold in the area, with residents urged to remain vigilant, emphasizing the importance of restraint and caution amidst this period of heightened insecurity. Well, we still have Barrister Mbeseha in the studios with us, which I'm sure would like to react to. There's two reports talking about the ASA in their commitment to preserve and secure the territory of Ambazonia from colonial incursions, and this report talking about the people in Mbeseha who have lost their lives since the documentary, and most of which, according to report, have been reported to participate in that documentary that was banned. What are your thoughts about this, Barrister Mbeseha?
Let me start with the ASA attacks and remind ourselves that the president of Ambazonia, President Sako, once said that the battle for the fight of Ambazonia is not going to be fought and won in every single village or every single town. It might well be fought and won in one town. That's why you have in all battles, in all struggles, you have pivotal spots. In Nuremberg, the place that marked the peak and the defeat or the fall of the opponent, where the final battle took place. And that said, let us go back to the last segment we talked about. We talked of banning Masquerades. Where? In Banso. Banso is in Buea. Now, this fight, this big mighty fight, took place somewhere in Buea, the same area. Is this new? It is not new. We have to look back again to history and remind ourselves that sometimes 5 years ago, or about that time, a certain Mr. Wilbur told on the floor of Parliament, told the world, not just the told the world, that the Buea people are the warriors. And he challenged them to come fight them in Buea. And told them once more that you might well assemble all the forces you have, including the ones from France. You are not going to defeat Ambazonia. And in principle, you are not going to defeat Buea. And so they are fighting in Buea, they are doing all this, they have chosen the wrong fight. That might be the last fight they ever have. Thinking that you will win the battle in Buea, you are miscalculating terribly. And so that is Buea. That's where that people will fight and lose, and they have lost, and they will continue to lose. And so, Wilbur, again, the son of the soil, Wilbur is still alive. He's no longer in Cameroon because of the violence. You drove him away. But Wilbur is still very much alive. His story and the narration he gave is not very old. The very people who sat in Parliament are still sitting there. Paul Buea is still sitting there. And the records are still there. If you can gather everybody, you cannot defeat Ambazonia. You can gather many more other people, you would not defeat the ASS in Buea. Buea is an important spot, an important element in the Anglophone call it, Ambazonian call it, Southern Cameroon struggle. It is in Buea, lest we forget, that the fount of Nsọ told the almighty Ahijo that here you come to see me. Even as the president, I'm not coming to see you. He caused Ahijo to move to his palace to see him in the rightful way. And so history is important. These facts are important. This is the same way. I don't imagine any other person in the whole Cameroon, let's just call it Cameroon, who challenged Ahijo of all in the 1960s, such a big dictator, to bow to him. As a traditional chief, he didn't have rifles, he didn't have grenades, he had nothing. He had only the traditional authority which made Ahijo from the north, where they respect the tradition, from the Fulani clan, where culture is important, to bow to defend himself. If Buea succeeded Ahijo, and he has any sense, those who work with him, if they can read back history, let them go back and read this history, and know that there's something to learn from Buea as far as Ambazonia is concerned. There is a no-go zone culturally. There's a no-go zone militarily. There is a no-go zone educationally. Because even in 1960-61, when they went to Fumban, the most learned person there, Dr. Fonglam, was from Buea. He was the most learned man there. He already had a PhD. And he was the chief translator. He was a Buea son. And so, document this history, learn from it. History is important because when you learn from history, you avoid pitfalls in the future. That's as far as that element is concerned. Then we'll go to what happened in Bamenda, the documentary thing. I addressed it last week sometimes, but this is what is important. What warned them? What said don't go there? What declared lockdown? Not because we hated anybody in Bamenda. We thought that was a very unsafe thing. And they showed that it was unsafe because they took it off station where their own security could be guaranteed. They could put their armored cars around there. There were those things. We said don't go there because there's nobody in Ambazonia. There's nothing to celebrate in Buea. From 1982 till today, no Ambazonia has anything to celebrate for Buea. In fact, when we mention the name Buea, an average Ambazonian, an average Anglophone, an average British Southern Cameroonian should wear black cloth. They should wear sackcloth to mourn that we ever had this type of people feature anywhere in our history. That we ever had this type of government feature anywhere in our own development. This man has been a curse. He's not only killed people physically, particularly Ambazonians, he has destroyed the whole thing we call a country. What example do you want me to give? You want me to start with Santa Coffee? You want us to go to the CDC? You want us to go to marketing board? You want us to go to PWD? I can name and name. There's nothing to show for Buea's reign over us. There was never anything to celebrate. And I said here then that you can go there. There will be armored cars to protect you in the station or wherever they choose to organize the event. But there will be no armored car when you come back home. Nobody has said that these people are dying were killed by Amba fighters. No, that has not been said. And I reminded them that in addition to the Amba fighters, who are the regular organized fighters, there's an army of unorganized people who hate Yaoundé to the teeth. They hate Yaoundé to death.
So.
They will kill you. If I will eliminate you if I see you cooperating with them. I don't need to be an Amba carrying, gun carrying soldier. No. There are so many people in Ambazonia, if not the majority, who will vomit you out because of your support for that nonsense called Yaoundé. They might not do it publicly because somebody will come and kill him. They will adopt him as an adopted children from Mamo and extorted money. They will organize Kale that never existed anywhere to steal your goats, to take even your ordinary fowl, chicken that you rear and get eggs from it. And so there's an army of people who oppose Yaoundé with their whole spirit, with their whole heart. And so doing what they did, I'm not surprised that they're losing their lives. We're not encouraging anyone to kill anyone, but that's the price you have to pay for being so blinded to bare facts. The suffering in Bamenda, where this guy went, the lack of roads, the collapse of the main road in the Commercial Avenue affects every citizen, affects the bike riders who live on 500 francs a day after riding bikes. The lack of good hospitals, good schools affects everybody, not only Amba fighters. And so be it. We just hope that our other brothers and sisters who did not understand can understand what is at stake. What is at stake is Ambazonia. What is at stake is the lives of the individual British Southern Cameroonians. What is at stake is your best survivor as a people. If you cannot even just organize your own traditional dance to celebrate a born house, to celebrate the death of your father or your mother, then where are we? Was it worth the price? Is it still worth the price? No. Enough is enough. Over to you.
Well, speaking of those who detest the idea of celebrating Paul Biya due to his track record, there's this very ironic and laughable report that shows the Colonial police chief complaining about roads that causes situation like what you're about to watch on screen now. Let's take a look. Let's take a look at this video of what this police is complaining about. Well, that video right there showed the kind of situation that could make the chief police complain. Well, imagine being forced to celebrate a leader for great accomplishments, only to turn around and amidst his colossal failures. This is the double-sided reality that colonial stooges in Ambazonia deal with. Praise with one side of the mouth to appease the colonial regime, and with the other, express frustration with the neglect they try so hard to ignore and hide. Well, let's take a look at this footage of Colonial Police Chief Mbarga Martin Gwele talking about something that would interest you. Let's take a listen. So in this video, he is basically complaining about his tedious journey, talking about how difficult accessing the road was for him at Mutengene. People had to dig the road with, of course, very unconventional tools to make it passable for him and the people he came with. Well, Martin Mbarga Ngwele, the 96-year-old colonial police chief from La République du Cameroon, recently took to complaining about the very roads his regime failed to build or maintain between Yaoundé and Mutengene. The irony, the roads lead to a police academy, a colonial police academy they overtook in Mutengene, now transformed into a site notorious for alleged tortures and abuse against Ambazonians after 4 decades of power. He dares to ask why the roads are so deplorable. Quite ironic, you would agree.
Oh well, just last week, the people of Ambazonia were compelled to watch a state-sponsored documentary filled with praises of Bia's achievements. It's a script written for propaganda, not truth, demanding the people to upload a leader while enduring the hardships his governance has created. They are told of Bia's contributions, but the roads, the hospitals, the infrastructure tells a different story, one of neglect, hypocrisy, and of course, double standards. It's hypocrisy at its peak when colonial loyalists like Mbaga and Ngole talk about their leader's success. They ignore their crumbling schools, hospitals, and roads left in Bia's wake. But when faced with the reality, even they can't keep up their facade. They speak out of both sides of their mouth, praising him to keep their power, yet forced to acknowledge the truth they have tried to bury for so long.
Well, the truth remains. Decades of neglect have left Ambazonia's infrastructure broken. The great accomplishments touted by Bia's regime are just words. For Ambazonians, the reality is seen in every pothole, every unsafe road, every death and road accident, every unfulfilled promise. That is the truth of the matter, the reality. Barrister Mbeseha, just before we let you go and head on to the news around Africa, this is a report of concern. Not once, not twice, it's a countless times we have talked about the deplorable state of roads, especially in the southern Cameroons. And yet again, we see something very shameful. something embarrassing. And it makes it all worse to have this colonial police chief complain, like, what happened to the road? Like he's not aware what's happening in the southern Cameroons and the state of neglect the entire nation of Ambazonia has gone through. What are your thoughts on
Well,
this?
the man is a police guy. He's a professional policeman. He went to the police school. He trained there. He had all the gradings right to the top of the police force before retiring. And even on his retirement, he served as an ambassador somewhere in Europe. So he knows what development it means. But that police school to which he was going to preside over a graduation award, it's not even their school. That school was created before we joined them. The school was created in 1960. It was not their school. But they came and took over the school and they are ruining it. But that's not the issue. The issue is why this story now. This man, he says he's 96. He's around that. I don't know where anybody is his age. But a man of 96, in other words, he has been in power maybe as long as Ahijo Buea have been there in that police force. So he has been to Motengene many other times before. But naturally, they go there by helicopter. So you must ask yourself why a 92-old man would take a car and drive from Yaoundé to Motengene. From Yaoundé to Douala before Motengene is not a good road at all. They are the worst roads that you can find anywhere else. What you saw, that thing you saw people falling into the river somewhere, probably it's not even in Ambazonia, it's somewhere in their own territory. They don't make noise to them. But when you see them do what they are doing, see them do what he does, they must have a political motivation behind it. I read all the actions with a lot of analogy. This is the government, the highest government security officer. He's not a police delegate, he's a policeman. The Minister of Defense is a delegate. He's the chief of that department. And when he drives from Yaoundé to Douala to Motengene, you must imagine how many checkpoints he passed on the road. Of policemen, he's on call, standing there and extorting money from the citizens. Is that right? I think at one moment they even banned it. But he passed through those checkpoints. There are people under his control. He said, stop that thing right there. He didn't do it. He comes right there. He gets there and he highlights the issue of roads. His issue of roads now, what he's emphasizing, is not so much the road from Yaoundé to Douala. Now, he's complaining essentially about the stretch of road from Douala to Tiko, 40 kilometers. Why all this now? I see it differently. I think, as a government minister, he could have gone back and written a report if that was his mission. But he says it publicly. Why? Maybe they have come to the end of the journey. They want somebody that they will sacrifice for this particular aspect. Because everybody in Cameroon call it, including Ambazonia, they travel on roads. They know the state of roads. The roads are so bad everywhere. But who is the headman in charge of roads? Who is the minister in charge of roads in Cameroon? It's a Bamedicat guy. You may see somebody that's from the West. So they put him out as a sacrificial lamb to bear the brunt of their failures. Now, the issue now is road. And the next question is, where is the minister of roads? Where is the money they get for roads? They're not talking about schools. They're not talking about hospitals. They're not talking about police brutality. They're talking about roads. But roads are only one of the billions of terrible things that are happening in Cameroon that make the country as a Cameroon unworkable. Why the stretch of road between Tiko and Motengene? Why? That one is very, very bad. Maybe it is not even as bad as from Douala to Bafoussam. But why? Because the Anglophone problem is on their neck. It's a diversion. It's a distraction. We have known about the roads forever. It's not something that they will do in the next day. It's not something that they will do in the next month or the next year. And so it is good that he said it. It's good. It is now being discussed. But you must ask again, why will a 96-year-old man enter a car to drive for 200-300 kilometers on bad roads to Motengene? could have flown. Even on the best roads, the drive, that long drive, will affect an old man 96 years old. Why did he take this risk? He knows he's at the end of the journey. Naturally, at 96, he should die. He knows the regime that he supports is at the end of his own journey. He's going out. And therefore, what does he do? Like they say in English, tell the truth and shame the devil. He's telling the truth, not of the roads, but he's telling the truth, in quote, of the failure of the system. Because when he stood there, he was not denouncing the Minister of Transport. He denounced all the ministers, if you listen to his speech. President Paul Biya calls a cabinet meeting 4 years ago and gave instructions to all the ministers. Go and execute my policy. Another term is coming, that has been executed. He's asking all the cabinet, what happened to the instructions the president gave us? We have all failed. That's the larger context that we have to look at this thing. But again, the state of that road all reminds us, Ambazonians, that we should never have been there. We deserve better than whatever they have there. We should never have been there. We have to fight and fight. If they must live in hell with their roads, so be it. We promise that an independent Ambazonia will have the best roads up to the border. And if they do permit us, we can even extend the roads system to theirs. We can help them. If they are so helpless, we will help them. So thank you, Mr. Mbela Ngele, the Chief of Police. Thank you for bringing this highlight, which to me, and I insist it should be to all of us, it marks the failure of the whole system, not just the road. It's a failure of the system confessed by the most adamant supporter of Paul Biya. He's from Baramayo. He's from the south. And I guess somewhere again, he summoned a meeting in the south, not too long ago, in Baramayo, his own place. And talk about it somewhere, ask the people, what did we do not to have even any development here in Baramayo? And we only urge Mr. Ngale that our earlier segment talked about arresting people and locking them in Buea for doing nothing. He's the chief of police. If he must oppress us, if we don't have good roads, just allow our citizens to live peacefully where they live. Let them live in their dungeons. Let them live in their farms. Tell your people to stop arresting people, adopting people, stealing money from them. And above all, use your intelligence to tell Paul Biya to go bring our brother with all the diplomacy that he have, who is now supposed to be in the hands of Paris in Nigeria. They are put out a ransom. Putting out a ransom means they are prepared to negotiate. Mr. Mbaraga, tell the president if he's still alive. But if he's dead, somebody is deputizing for him. We want our own back. We will not sacrifice him for your government. Over to you.
Thank you, Barrister Mbeseha. With that, we'll call it a close with you on Undaunted tonight. As always, it's been very educating with you here on Undaunted. But we'll say good night to you from here.
Thank you for having me once more.
Sure. All right, coming up next is news around Africa. The African scene yet again, it comes to light the beauty queen Chidima Adesina, a dual South African Nigerian citizen who is now set to represent Nigeria in the Miss Universe pageant following a controversial exit from Miss South Africa due to the xenophobic backlash. Born in South Africa to a Nigerian father and a Mozambican born South African mother, Adesina became the target of anti-foreigner sentiment, with government officials and media accusing her of not being truly South African. The controversy has escalated, with the South African government now moving to revoke her identification document, citing issues with her mother's citizenship status.
The incident has stirred diplomatic tensions and raises political implications for South Africa, potentially straining its relationship with Nigeria as Africa's two largest economies. Nigeria and South Africa share a history of economic and political ties. However, instances of xenophobic and xenophobia in South Africa have long been a source of tension between the two nations. With attacks on Nigerian nationals and businesses in South Africa triggering diplomatic disputes in the past, this ongoing hostility has repeatedly disrupted trade, security cooperation, and cultural exchange between the two countries, undermining the vision of a united African front.
Well, historically, South Africa has grappled with waves of xenophobic violence targeting African immigrants, with Nigerian communities often facing accusations of job displacement, crime, and economic competition. Such sentiments reflect broader socio-economic frustrations within South Africa, where high unemployment, and poverty rates fuel resentment against foreigners. Well, this has often led to violent attacks on immigrants, as witnessed in the xenophobic outbreak in 2008, 2015, and 2019, with Nigerian nationals amongst those victimized. These incidents have sparked protests in Nigeria and led the Nigerian government to temporarily recall its ambassador, highlighting the ongoing diplomatic strain.
In the case of Adesina, their decision to rescind her citizenships ostensibly over questions of legitimacy may be interpreted as an extension of South Africa's ambivalence towards foreign nationals, while additional host dual nationality have forced exit from the Miss South Africa pageant and the revocation of her citizenship highlights deeper issues. Her experience underscores the harsh reality faced by many African immigrants and even South African born citizens with foreign ancestries who often navigate social prejudice and local scrutiny in South Africa.
Well, by proceeding with the withdrawal of Adesina's identification document, South Africa risks further damaging its international image as a welcoming and democratic nation. In an increasingly interconnected continent, South Africa's handling of this case could have broader repercussions impacting its role as a leader in African unity and cooperation. As anti-foreigner sentiment rises, South Africa's relationship with neighboring African nations, especially Nigeria, may continue to face challenges, potentially hindering regional development and solidarity. But we hope that this would not escalate, but only have a calm and palpable end. Well, coming up next is news across the globe.
The 2024 U.S. presidential election is just around the corner, and the polls are indicating a nail-biting finish. With only days to go, Republican candidate Donald Trump and Democratic candidate Kamala Harris are neck and neck in various national and battleground state polls. Some polls show Trump slightly ahead, while others give Harris a narrow lead. For instance, in Pennsylvania, Trump is leading by a 1 to 2% in some polls, while Harris is tied or slightly ahead in others. Similarly, in Wisconsin, Harris has a slim 1% lead in the latest Masquerades poll, but it's a dead hit in other surveys. Experts are weighing in, with Democratic strategist James Carville and conservative attorney Judge Conway predicting a Harris win. However, election law expert Rick Hassan cautions that it's still a coin flip and could go either way on the 5th of November. So what does these battleground states? Let's give the map and the chart. In Pennsylvania, Trump leads by 1 to 2% in some polls, tied or slightly tied behind in others. While in Wisconsin, Harris leads by 10%, but tied in other surveys. Michigan, Harris and Trump are tied in latest polls. North Carolina, Trump leads by 1% in some polls, tied in others. Meanwhile, experts' prediction in the charts, John Carville says Harris will win. George Conway says Harris will win. Rickerson says election is a coin flip.
Well, away from the United States election to the BRICS, Brazil has just become the second BRICS nation after India to decline participation in China's massive Belt and Road Initiative (BRI). The decision comes as a significant setback in China's ambition project, which aims to connect countries across the globe through infrastructure and trade. Brazil's President Lula da Silva has chosen not to join the BRI, instead seeking alternative collaborations with Chinese investors. According to Celso Amorim, Brazil's special presidential advisor for international affairs, the country was to take the relationship with China to a new level without signing an accession contract. This means Brazil is cautious about committing to Chinese infrastructure and trade projects, viewing them as potential risk rather than guarantees. Key reason for Brazil's decision includes concerns over potential risk. Brazil is wary of the potential downsides of joining the BRI, including debt traps and loss of sovereignty, desire for alternative collaborations. Brazil seeks to also explore other ways of collaborating with China without being tied to the BRI framework. While no tangible benefit, Brazilian officials believe the BRI doesn't offer significant short-term benefits for the country. This move by Brazil is significant, especially considering Chinese President Xi Jinping's upcoming visit to the country in November. It remains to be seen how China will respond to Brazil's decision and whether other countries will follow suit.
Well, Israel is boasting in air defense capabilities with a new $200 million contract awarded to Elbit System for adding high-power laser systems known as Iron Beam. This cutting-edge technology is designed to strengthen the country's air defense network, providing a vital layer of protection against drones, rockets, and other aerial threats. The Israel Defense Forces confirms their purchase of the new high-power laser systems. The I-beam system, developed by Rafael Advanced Defense System, is a 100 kW class high-energy laser weapon system that has already undergone advanced testing at the Gaza border under the supervision of the Directorate of Defense Research and Development. This technology is expected to become operational with the Israel Defense Forces next year, serving as the final line of defense against emerging threats.
Well, the key features for Iron Beam, high energy laser weapon system, 100 kilowatt, a class technology for effective neutralization of aerial threats, advanced target detection, which is capable of detecting and engaging drones, rockets, and other unmanned aerial systems. Integration with Iron Dome, designed to augment Israel's existing air defense system for enhanced protection. The significant investment underscores Israel's commitment to staying ahead of the curve in terms of defense technology, with the U.S. also providing funding for the Iron Beam program as part of the Israel Security Supplemental Appropriation Act of 2024. It's clear that this technology is a crucial component of Israel's national security strategy. With that, we'll have the recap.
Before we go, let's take a look at the major stories that made tonight's bulletin.
On Undaunted tonight, we brought to you the colonial regime in Buea, releasing 93 detainees after women demanded justice in a recent protest. The colonial official banning masquerades in Buea County, which was seen widely by Ambazonians as an erasure of their cultural identity. We also saw the Ambazonian State Army reinforcing commitment to defend their territory.
Oh, well, tonight on Undaunted, we talked about the four that died following lockdown and me documentary screening, while we also looked at the colonial officials' praise of year's rule while confessing Ambazonian's neglect. On the African scene, we talked about the beauty queen stripes of South African citizenship, and the 2024 US presidential election was on the front burner on the foreign scene. And that's it for tonight's Undaunted. Bringing into the news on Church Stories. On behalf of Star Smart and the entire Undaunted crew, we say thank you for being with us.
We'll leave you with ABC Amba TV images. Good night and God bless you.